we are here with Mary, who's an author, a speaker, a healthy cooking instructor, and she runs a nonprofit called The New Kitchen. Mary, thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm excited to dive into your story.
You bet, Easton. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. So, can you talk about your journey getting into the healthy eating space?
Oh, yeah. The interesting thing is, it's probably the last thing I expected in my life. If you'd asked me at age 30, are you going to be a healthy cooking instructor and an author in the healthy eating field? For many years, I was a corporate attorney. And yet, when I had my first child, a daughter, the 12-hour days were just unrealistic to think about. So I stepped out and I went and worked on my MBA for a while. And then along came my son, and that's when the fireworks kind of started. He had one ear infection after another as a little baby, even while he was on antibiotics, and that's a little troubling. And about that time, my daughter had croup again and again, and we thought, oh, she's probably an asthmatic. And then I was cycling through one virus after another, and we were just kind of a sick mess. And something inside me prompted me to go see a naturopath. Now, this was 35 years ago. And at that time, nobody really knew what is a naturopath. I didn't know. But I went to it. And then the other thing that was strange is he recommended that we go on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And who'd ever even heard of gluten? But we did it. And we got healthy and we got happy. And just like almost everybody else in the healthy eating field, if you look around, we've all gone through a health crisis. We
Yes.
figured out that we can get healthy on our own by taking control of our health. And yes, that doesn't mean medicines don't help, and pharmaceuticals and hospital stays, but it does mean that we have a lot of control. And so we get excited and we want to share that with others.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to do. And that was kind of my level one, though. But then over the last, like I said, I've been in this field now for 35 years. So for the first couple decades, I got real excited. I wanted to share tools and skills with people. How can you make healthy eating easy in your life? But after, 20, 25 years of that, I ran into what I call the big mystery. And that is that I've put out all these tools, I've put out all these resources. They're good, they're helping people. And I looked around at our world and looked at all the different tools and resources. Think of all the cookbooks we have and all the cooking shows and the diet books and the nutrition books. And we have gorgeous kitchens. And yet still I was troubled by the fact that why do we still struggle to feed ourselves well? And so that's been kind of my mission over the last 10 years is trying to understand that and figure out, can I help solve that problem? So that's kind of where I'm at today, Easton.
I love it. And with you being a corporate attorney in the corporate world to then transitioning to the healthy eating side of things, how much do you think the corporate structure or the corporateness of America plays into not eating healthy?
Oh, yeah. Easton, it reminds me, I worked for a number of years on uh, let's see, an organization called Live Well. Um, and it was all about trying to make a community healthier. So we worked in a small community trying to figure out how to make it healthier. And I remember that one of the members on our community worked for a tech company that had overseas offices, both East and West. And so these people pretty much had to be on call 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And we talked about them, well, we're going to bring in some yoga classes for these people. And I just had to laugh. And I said, honestly, what a yoga class, that's great, but it's a band-aid. I mean, the problem is the culture. And and when I talk about culture, that's one of the big things that I talk about is our whole eating culture is problematic. We've got ourselves wound up in a culture that idolizes and glamorizes convenience foods. Whether that's you're working at your tech office or you're working at home or you're taking the kids around, you stop and you get convenience foods. That's normal. That's what we're supposed to do. How are we supposed to get healthy on a diet like that? So yeah, I mean, in answer to your question, I think that our whole culture, both the work culture and our eating culture, our food culture, it's a real problem. It's it's setting us up for failure instead of success.
Well, I think when you look at food and our mindset around food, everything is food. If that's a business meeting, if that's a birthday party, if that's dating, everything we do is based around food and eating. And I think, like you said, if you're flying from one meeting on this side of the world to the other side of the world, you're probably eating at airport foods. And I think just the entire culture of that is a negative. And how do you think we go about still being a productive employee or a productive business owner that is traveling while eating healthy? Like, how do you think we kind of bridge that gap of being in corporate America, being in business, to then eating healthy at the same time?
Well, I won't deny that it'll take work. But one of the big things I'm working on is, can we shift our mindsets around this? The bottom line thing that's going to have to happen is that this is a big answer, but I'm going to try to condense it, Easton.
Yes.
um, the bottom line thing, what we have to do is we have to get back to eating real whole foods. That's the answer to where we're at right now. The problem with real whole foods is they have to be prepared. They're not the
Yes.
things that come in the microwavable packages. They're not the things that the people bring in for the business meeting. So, how do we deal with that? And it's a return to the kitchen. And that sounds so radical. I call this my radical solution, is returning to the kitchen. Because what I found is that when my kids were young and we had to go on this gluten-free diet, gluten-free and dairy-free, it was a shock because our whole diet was gluten and dairy. It was the big pizza that could serve 2 nights.
Yeah.
It was peanut butter and jellies. It was mac and cheese, anything that was easy. So, what a shock when I found myself in the kitchen cooking 3 meals a day, every day for my kids. And yet I had to admit that, as annoying and aggravating, I ranted and railed against it, but we were healthy. My kids were happy. So, how could I resent the very thing that was making us healthy? So, I had to look at it and say, I could be antagonistic to the kitchen and just gut it out. Or could I come to a place where I embrace the kitchen and go, this is my pathway to health? This isn't just a torture chamber, which we
Yeah.
sometimes think it is, but it's my pathway to health. That's a radical shift of thinking. And so, how do we do that in the business world, Easton? That's a big question. Well, let me stop there, okay?
Yes.
And because I'm sure you've got some more questions after that.
Ye- yes, I do. I want to dive into, you obviously learned to love to cook. You obviously learned to enjoy being in the kitchen, putting things together. If there's someone that is looking to transition into not eating healthy to eating healthy, but they're struggling with cooking, what are some advice you have to people that are trying to transition to actually love to cook?
Yeah. Let me start with one thing, though, is that when you say love to cook, I want to emphasize nobody ever needs to love to cook. We know those people that they love to
Yeah.
cook, and that's great. They love spending time in the kitchen. That's great. You might even get to a point where you like to cook. But what I'm saying is, let's just get to the point where we're okay with it. Think of all the things that we have to do in our lives. You got to gas the car, you got to pay your insurance, you got to clean the bathroom. Do we rant and rail over them? Well, we don't like them, but we do them. They're part of life. Think about it. Feeding ourselves is probably the number one most important thing that we
Yes.
do in our lives. It's the foundation for everything if we're healthy. So let's not worry about liking, let's not worry definitely about loving cooking. Let's just be okay with it. Okay, so we got past that. Now remind me, what was the other question? Because I think it's really important that people don't feel the expectation to love cooking. So what was the
Perfect.
rest of the question?
Thank you
Sorry.
for laying that out, by the way. That was great. How does someone that is trying to
Oh,
transition into this journey of, okay, I know my food's toxic, I know that it's bad for me. Now I do want to start to transition to start cooking. How does someone, you know, fill that gap and make that transition?
absolutely. And so this gets into what my big organizing theme of my work now is called meal making transformation. There's three parts of it. The first is to be new in our kitchen. The second, be new in our cooking. And the third is being new in our thinking. And that last one's a big one. So let's just focus on those first two because I think that's more relevant to the question you asked. Being new in well, let's start with being new in our cooking. What I think a lot of us have to realize is that we've got all these cooking shows going on and these beautiful cookbooks, and we've got all these blog posts with these gorgeous pictures. It sets up an expectation that we've got to be making all this incredible food. That is not the case at all. When people find out I'm a healthy eating instructor, they go, "Oh, you must eat these fabulous meals." No, not at all. I eat a lot of what I call skillets, where I throw everything in a skillet, cook it up. That's it. And that's the expectation I want to set for people. We can make cooking really simple. Learn 5 basic techniques. Get a pantry stocked with a few key ingredients, learn to make a few vegetables, and you're set to go. And this is what I teach in all my healthy meal making classes, and people can find those on my YouTube channel. And that's a really good way to get started. And also, if you join my email list every month, I give you lots of recipes and tips to get you going. Simple, simple stuff. The next thing that you got to do, though, and kind of at the same time, a lot of people don't realize that we need to have a kitchen, like I'm in my kitchen today. It's got to be set up for success. If your counters are covered with clutter, you can't find things in the cupboard, you don't have the right equipment, your pantry's not stocked, and most importantly, you haven't planned your meals, you're going to come into the kitchen, you're going to waste 20 minutes just trying to get organized. That's not doable on a busy lifestyle. So those are the two big things, and they're both, I've got a book on how you set up the kitchen for success. I've got
Yes.
tons of stuff on my website, my YouTube channel that will take you to that.
And what are some
So
basic
doable.
tool? Yes. No. And I think that's what you exactly laid out is like, here's some basic things that you can do to really lay out a foundation of you walk into the kitchen, you feel confident cooking at home. You know you have time now because you planned everything. And what are some of those basic tools that people should have in their kitchen to make sure that cooking at home goes smoothly?
Yeah, right. Well, in my book, and people, I'm sure you're going to give information to people of how they can contact me. And
Yes.
if you do, I'm happy to share that. But in my book, I don't know if I can lay my hands on it right away, but I give you a nice little chart that identifies all the things that you need for a basic setup. What I want people to take away from that, though, is that there's only maybe 30 items, which maybe sounds like a lot, but you've probably got a bunch of them. The big thing to know is you don't need that much. About, I'm sure 75% of my cooking is done with a good chef's knife, a good saute pan or two, and a good cutting board. And between those, you can do a whole lot. So I don't want anybody to go, "Oh my goodness, I've got to go out and get a panini maker and a
Yeah.
Vitamix and an Instapot and all of this stuff." No, you can get by. In fact, when I first started, a lot of my stuff promptly went to the camping, my camping collection because it's so bad. But I was still able to get my kids healthy and me healthy, even with equipment that wasn't that great. A lot of my stuff comes from thrift stores, for goodness sake. So,
Wow.
this is not something that you have to spend a fortune on. And I'm happy
And
to share that list with other people if they'd like it.
yes, please. And I would love to get your opinion, especially for people that are looking to start cooking, your opinion on Teflon pans.
Well, I think all over the news is something called PFAS, right? For those who don't know, it's PFAS, and it stands for some really long chemical name that I'm not going to try to murder. But PFAS, and they're all over the news now because Teflon is made with PFAS, and we found out that they're now invading our environment. Famous movie with Mark Ruffalo that showed the guy with the cow
Yes.
farm, and it was downstream from the Teflon factory, and so word is getting out. And so yeah, no, stay away from the Teflon. And there's been some other substitutes coming, the ceramic ones. I'm seeing articles that are questioning even that. Hey, Why don't you just go back to stainless steel pans? They last forever. Nothing comes off of them. If you burn them, and I have burned mine several times, you can clean them with a little cleanser and they work just fine. And I do have an article on that. I think the big reason we like Teflon and nonstick pans is, oh, they're easy to clean. If you know how to clean a stainless steel skillet, that is so easy to clean. It's called deglazing. It just means putting a little water in the pan and scraping it while it's still hot. Or for goodness sake, soak it and try to clean it that night and not the next
Yes.
morning.
What do you think about cast iron pans?
Oh, I love cast iron. I mean, I think they're great. I don't actually do cast iron myself because they're too heavy and I prefer my stainless steel. I've got real good stainless steel ones, so I use that.
Yeah.
But
And
sure,
can
cast
you?
iron's a great option.
Yes, I would say cast iron and stainless steel are the top two for sure.
I'm sorry, Easton. If you could talk a little louder, it's been a little
Yeah,
hoarse.
yeah. I would say stainless steel and cast iron are top two.
Oh yeah, that's what I would say too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. And one thing I also, you actually mentioned this earlier. I would love for you to dive into microwaves and why you do not use them.
Well, first, in all honesty, I do use the microwave. Some people don't, and I totally respect that. Um, I mean, I've read lots and lots of articles, and there's no definitive news that I've read that says microwaves themselves are bad. But the one thing that is agreed upon, don't microwave in plastic because that can migrate into your food and so
Yeah.
forth. So yes, I do microwave because
Okay.
sometimes I find it's a great way to cook vegetables, especially I just did a class where we cooked zucchini in the microwave and everybody was stunned at how well it came out. It really preserved the flavor. And so I use, and for heating up my leftovers, yeah, I do it. What about you, Easton? Did I
Uh,
take it that you're a
I
no microwave person?
I am definitely a no microwave person. I don't like to
Good.
use air fryers either. I try to cook everything through a cast iron pan if I can, either in the on the stove or in the oven. Just try to stay away from like all of that stuff personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I totally respect that. And I've had to go times when I don't have a microwave that's broken and haven't gotten a new one. And I'm surprised at how it's not that big a deal. You can live without it. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
no, for sure. And can you kind of talk about you? You've been talking about it a little bit periodically throughout the interview, but can you really dive into how does your book start to help people transform their relationship with food and with cooking?
right. So you're talking about my little booklet. I just made a little copy of it here
Yes,
called Meal Making
yes,
Transformation.
yes.
And I talked about how there's three elements. And we talked about the being new in our kitchen, being new in our cooking, and now being new in our thinking. And the thinking element of it is what you're talking about. How can we, I like your use of the word relationship with the kitchen, because over my years in the industry here in the field, what I've noticed is we don't have a great relationship with the kitchen. In fact, there's not a lot of respect. There's not a lot of value. We don't view our time in the kitchen as a worthwhile use of our time. And so here I am saying, why don't we embrace the kitchen? And what I and the reason I do that is that we know modern psychology tells us all about how, if you go into something with a negative attitude, you're probably going to have a negative experience, right? I mean, that's not any secret. So what if we go in with the positive, embracing attitude to the kitchen? Probably we're going to have a better experience and better outcome. Be able to make the meals that we really want, that our bodies crave. But I've been thinking about it is, how do we get to that point where we can embrace the kitchen? And I believe that what it has to happen is there's got to be a deep transformation in our thinking, in our values, and our beliefs. Like, what do we truly believe is a worthwhile use of our time? And right now, we have to understand two things. We got to understand, where did our current thinking come from? And then how do we break out of that? And what's really interesting, Easton, is that our current thinking comes from the convenience food industry.
Yeah.
And that's easy to understand. They got a lot of product to sell. They want us to eat a lot of convenience foods. That's how they make money. That's their job. Our job is to be kind of like be guardians of what goes into our bodies. And so what we have to do is realize that, okay, we have been programmed by the convenience food industry, one, to eat a lot of convenience foods. And there's a lot of books out there that talk about all the shenanigans that are going on, the way they design the smell and the packaging and the addictive taste to help, so that we'll be convinced to eat this. But what a lot of people don't know is at the same time that the industry was trying to convince us to eat these foods, it was also slamming the back door shut. And what I mean by that is that it would be easy enough to make our own meals, except what the industry did at the same time is it convinced us that the kitchen is not a place where we want to be. And it's interesting to know that this was actively marketed this way. I mean, did you know that, Easton, that we were actually programmed and convinced through marketing to um, denigrate the kitchen, to dismiss the kitchen as a place that's not worthwhile for us to go? Does that surprise you?
It doesn't. I've heard different type of marketing ploys like the push back in the 1900s to push meat for breakfast. So I've heard a lot of different propaganda pushed. So hearing that, the fact that they pushed this through marketing does not surprise me. I think they've done crazier stuff in the past. So you're saying that the push of eating unhealthy, of having a negative mindset on the kitchen is related to needing to satisfy shareholders and needing to make a profit, so they push all these things so they can make more money. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. And then the corollary, though, is that in addition to getting us to eat the food, they've gotten us to stay out of the kitchen and divorced us from the kitchen. That's where we could save ourselves. That's where we go to make the real whole food meals. But if we've been convinced that, oh, that's old fashioned, that's dowdy, nobody does that. The modern way to eat is you put a microwavable package in the microwave and you have an instant meal. It's all about convenience.
Yes.
So I think you were getting at, well, how do we get out of that? And the number one thing, it's real easy. You start thinking for yourself. And I think it sounds like you've done that. You've seen that, whoa, wait a minute, what are they telling us? And I think what we have to realize is that there's no universal law that says cooking is old fashioned and dowdy and it's not a worthwhile use of our time. There's nothing of the sort that's that. We've just been convinced to believe that, but we can throw all that out. That's just a fabrication of marketing. So that's what I encourage people to do in my new little booklet that I hope you'll read or listen to. And because it tells my story of how I came to see. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. And sometimes we need a little righteous anger and go, wait, why are people trying to convince me to do something that's against my own self-interest? It's I think modern psychology calls that enablement. And I don't think any of us want to be enabled. So that's where I think, Easton, I think in the short answer is that we've got to transform our thinking, but transforming thinking is something that takes time. And that's why I've got the
Yes.
booklet. That's why I've got newsletters. That's why I've got podcasts, because I know it takes time to migrate away from this thinking that's been ingrained in us for now 5 to 6 decades. So it's going to take some time to change that in our culture.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely a slow journey, but I think a lot of people are waking up now and
Yes.
they're questioning those things. They
Yeah.
want to be healthy. They're like, why am I not feeling well? Why am
Yeah.
I having these random diseases pop up that I didn't know
Yes.
were, was there 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's no, you
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's when you say random, we've been led to believe that it's all random, and it's like, well, probably, maybe not so random. So-
yeah. Food plays a huge, huge role in just our health in general.
Oh, what was that, Easton?
Uh, Food plays a huge role like in our health in general.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like I say, I think it's one of the most fundamental things we can do as human beings to perpetuate the species is to eat the way nature intended for us to eat. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Mary, that's all the questions I have for you. How can people find you? And what is one thing you want to leave people with?
Okay, number one, where you can find me is at thenewkitchen.org. That's where you can get my little booklet. It's just 18 pages. You can read it, you can print it out, you can listen to it. I hope you will. And at that same website, just fill out the contact form if you have any feedback for me. I would love that. I'd love to get this idea out. What do I want to leave people with is to just take home two thoughts. The first of them is, how could we have ever been convinced that we don't have the time and the energy and the wherewithal to feed ourselves well? How did we ever let ourselves get convinced of this most intimate act that we should be the guardians? And how did we let people break down through that barrier? And the second thing is just, I want to leave you a message of hope. I know from what Easton, the questions he's asked, it sounds tough. You're on a plane. What are you going to do? You're at the business meeting. You're hungry. The vending machine's down there. It's got the big cookies in it. I know it's tough, but I want to leave you with some hope that this is doable. I've done it. I've seen other people do it. This is not outlandish. It's doable. You might be a little weird. People might kind of look at you and go, but we can do this, and let's do it. I hope you'll join me in creating a new culture around healthier meal making and eating, and it starts with meal making transformation within each of us. So thank you everyone, and thank you, Easton.
Yes, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. We can stay in after and chat after this is over, but thank you for coming on and sharing this knowledge. I think a lot of people
Absolutely,
need this, and just we need just a healthier world. So thank you. I appreciate it.
absolutely. I'm glad to be here.